Okay, welcome to budgeting part two. So, this is probably going to be potentially like a four-part shot. The first one was the overview, where we went over, we kind of went over like at what areas in our lives that we budgeted the most. What I want to do now is kind of take you sequentially through the process of how we got to where we are, which is software tracking of our numbers versus our budget. But we just didn't have that. Just didn't happen. So let's go through this. The very first spreadsheet I did, this is probably like, I don't know. Well, I guess I'm looking at this. This is October of 20. So that was 5 years ago, roughly four and a half. So maybe a little sooner. I probably made this before this because this is a dump of actual expenses. So I probably had this sheet done before then. So what I wanted to do was go through, determine. I ended up really not using this column, whether or not I could control this. How much is it today? How much is retirement good? Retire less. And the only reason I created these columns is probably so I could filter, but I don't think I really ended up doing it. So let's just go through them real quick. So, and these were just me putting them down, probably pulling up my bank account on the side and kind of going through them. There's one number that is a super important number for everybody, which is spending miscellaneous. Because you can see from this, like this isn't a lot of budgeting rows in the end. So this is 31 categories. That's not crazy. And I didn't want keeping track of this stuff to be onerous and nuts. So I grabbed the specific stuff. So obviously mortgage, my intention was to I wouldn't retire with a mortgage. I think that's dangerous. You'll see how this also plays into my long-term care plan, which we'll get into at one point. But it requires not having a mortgage. I used to have flood insurance. It's a whole story, like flood on, flood off, flood on. The Army Corps of Engineers came in, and when I first bought the house, I was in a flood zone. Then later on, the Army Corps of Engineers came up and said, no, whoever did your survey, or no, I was refinancing. They said, whoever did your survey did it wrong. It actually only goes up to halfway through your yard. So here, hold on. I'm just doing this timer so that I can restrict my length of time. So uh, I had them come in. I was refinancing. They said, no, the last mortgage company didn't look at it right. The flood zone actually goes halfway through your yard. So I was able to drop the flood insurance. And then I actually found private flood insurance, which was awesome. A realtor friend of mine gave me a site to go to, and it literally my flood insurance used to be really expensive. I think it was, gosh, I want to say like 1,000, maybe more, maybe 1,500 a year, something, maybe 2,000 a year. It was crazy. I haven't had it for a long time. So so anyhow, in and out, in and out, and then eventually they ended up not requiring it because they took my whole property out of the flood zone. So it's kind of good, right? I bought in a flood, but if when I sell, it won't be in a flood, which is great. So you'll see I have nothing in the flood, so you may not need that. College, I don't need anything in that because all the college is done. Compassion International is a great organization we've been giving to for 30 years. And this supports two kids in underprivileged countries. And we've just always had that. Like this retire less is kind of like what happens if we're in bad shape. So church, we tend to give. I mean, this is for my retirement. We gave more than this, but this was like $600 a month. And then also like which church is super important to us. So we give to that. When the income comes down, it was 400. We give a lot, like out of our miscellaneous stuff. We give a lot to other causes and other things. my I mean, credit where credit's due. My wife is way better at giving money than I am. Just way better. Like that's if you haven't figured out by now, that's not my strength. So she'll actually, this is what we write out to church. Not today, as in when I did this, like, originally when I did this a few years ago. Actually, now we still give 600 today. You'll see in my automated, in the software, you'll see how it takes care of it. But we'll go through this first. So we have property taxes. I pay my own property taxes. Every quarter we go there. I guess for me, I think I did a calculation like 25 years ago. If I could invest that money instead of having the mortgage company hold on to it, even though I know they don't hold on to a full amount. So we've always just out of habit did it. Our water sewer, and you can be kind of looking at this. This is like a Jersey thing too. This is about how much, if you're interested in how much it costs to live in New Jersey. Property tax is about $1,100 a month. Water sewer is like $50 a month. Most of this is sewer. For all the squawking, oh, you left the water dripping, or you did this, or you did that. I think only like 10% of this is actually is actually water. The rest is sewer. I used to commute to New York City. So, and like I said, you won't have a lot of these line items I don't even have. So that was just 000. Phone cell, we've got this down to about 200 a month. This was when I was still paying for some of the kids. Now I think it's like 120 a month because it just turns out to be a lot easier for the kids to stay on the plans. The kids stay on our plan, but I use Venmo and they reimburse me because it's like $30 a month for them, but they get, whatever, full internet, full text, full whatever, the whole thing. They get like, the high speed internet from their phone, 5G, whatever it is. So ultimately it's 120 for us a month, but I collect, from the kids when they hit like 6 months after 6 months after like logical graduation, or when I think they should start growing up, they start paying. So I think the PSE&G bill is more along the lines of 120, but at the time I did it, it was 90. We do the equal payment plan on this. It makes it hard sometimes to budget when your monthly bill goes up and down. So we do the equal payment plan. JCP&L, you can't do an equal payment plan, so it's like 125 a month. So we at the time didn't have a car payment. You are going to see in my automated stuff that when we get into the software, that I start thinking about new cars in a couple years. So in a couple years, I think I have in the budget to start stocking away like $500 a month. At any time I could take out a 401k withdrawal of the full amount of the car. But what I'm hoping to do is we have a Toyota Highlander and a Dodge Challenger, and we have 115,000 miles or 112,000 miles on the Highlander. So I'm hoping to get 200,000 out of that without having to sacrifice or be worried about where we're going. So in a couple of years, I'm going to start putting away some money, but you'll see that in the other. So I just put like $350 a month. My other software is better because it'll say start at a certain age. Car and gas generally today was 75. I honestly, when we get into the new software, I'll be able to show you. But I figure this is just like, it's nice to see. I think it's good for everyone to see how we progressed to get to a certain spot. So I don't know if 125 is realistic. I probably just looked up in the bank. I was probably 75. My wife just works 5 minutes away from here. And I wasn't, because of COVID, I was able to work from home. So our gas bill was pretty low. I think I just said when we retire, it'll go up a little more because we'll move around. Car insurance, it is what it is. I think my latest bill now, because this was with kids and stuff, I think it's this. I think it's like $100, maybe. I think it's $70 a month for each of us. So it's like 140 a month. But at the time I did this, but we'll get into that too. I'll actually do the actual DirecTV. Big thing. I don't do DirecTV anymore. I do Hulu because I got Hulu, Disney Plus, and my son Jack said that the sports are much better on Hulu. So I get Hulu Live TV, Disney Plus. I think that's it for $89 a month. And DirecTV went up to like 100. So I ended up, it was a lot cheaper. Like at the time I was doing this spreadsheet, DirecTV was 70. It ended up going up to like 90 or 100. So I just swapped over to Hulu. Amazon Prime, we don't do tons. It's a good thing Amazon got into the videos because I probably wouldn't have kept it. But so we watch a fair amount of Prime movies. And since COVID, we've been bigger consumers of Amazon. So we got cable internet that you can always negotiate down. Actually, I don't do. Internet for me is still $55. So basically, I go through Optimum, and whenever they jack that price up, I call and say I'm going to leave. I think T-Mobile has a deal now where you can literally just put the thing up and it uses 5G wireless to get to your house and you hook up to that. So I always threaten to go to, in a nice way, to go to T-Mobile. But that's been consistent. I think I'm around like $55, $60 a month. Netflix, whatever, $25 a month. Food. So I do all the food shopping for the last year since I'm retired. I do all the food shopping, the cooking, the cleaning, all that good stuff. So this is probably about $1,000 a month. I just went yesterday, but it varies. It's usually around $200 every 2 weeks. But then I get meat from Good Chop and stuff like that. So this retail 650 is probably a little on the low side, but not too much. Clothes, yada yada. From Little Seinfeld, yada yada. It is what it is. You just kind of schedule what you think is enough for the year, and you put it away monthly, and then you hammer it. Lawn service, I do my own. Like I said, you heard this before. I do all my own spring cleaning. I do all my own cutting. I do all that good stuff. But I do bring somebody in to fertilize. Today, it's like it ends up being like I think $400, something like that, to get them to come in like 6 times over the summer and fertilize. So I think I just put it up with potentially going to hiring a landscaper, which most people do. Okay, spending miscellaneous and miscellaneous. Well, we'll get back to that in a minute. This was the hardest category. This is the category where you literally have to go to your bank account, go to your credit card, do an Excel spreadsheet dump of a year's worth of stuff, and literally go through everything and say, is this in one of my budgets? Does it fit into one of these? These are monthly predictive things that are going on. You know how much CarMate's going to be. Maybe not car gas, but you have a good idea. You know how much Prime is. You know how the only thing that in this whole thing, you even to a certain extent know what food is your miscellaneous and spending. And so really the only way to do that is to do it sounds funny, do a dump, but do a dump. So I can't remember how I got this number, but I think that's what I did. So I was just poking around and I had dumped my credit card statement, and I probably had to dump both. If I cruise through here, yeah, I have this transaction download. This is 1 January of 2024, which is interesting. January 2nd, 2024. I don't know. That's funny. I thought I'd done this a lot longer ago. Because I retired in March and I'd already had this number in anyway. But I just dumped. It looks like I dumped in 2023. I did a dump of all of our miscellaneous expenses. I probably was just doing a sanity check, and I must have done exactly what I'm prescribing, because this is just a pivot table. Is dump it, go through, maybe have a column that says miscellaneous, and then just put an X in it as you're going through. And then once you put the X in it, a filter on it so you only have the X's, and then just do a pivot table in Excel. It's real easy. And you'll see that's I probably ended up just taking like some of my higher numbers and doing this, which is really funny, because if this is the month, I find January is rough. February is awesome. March is awesome. April should be awesome. I don't know why this is so high, but you'll see what I did is that's probably where I got this number from. Let's see here. So that's probably where I got the 1,400 from, and today's 1,500. And in all honesty, I probably do have less miscellaneous expenses once the kids are off my back. So that miscellaneous category is the hardest. Homeowners insurance, I think mine went up a little, but that's 70 times 12 is 940. I think it's 1,000 now. So that went up. This is, I'm surprised I don't have my special vacations in here. So it kind of is. So we have a vacation. Now you're going to see in my new budget, going down to Wildwood, and if you saw my video on Wildwood, you can watch it, is a must. Like we have to go to Wildwood. It's a given. So that costs generally $3,600. So I usually have $300 a month that goes into Wildwood no matter what, which is probably where this is coming from. But I promised my wife that if I was going to retire, I had to promise her enough to like have great vacations, because she's going to retire in 2 years. And then we can talk about that too. My go-go years, which you see in the software, my go-go years are basically from 62 to 77. So that's 15 years of real big activity. So what I did is I told her, listen, $24,000 a year, which I think is crazy, but she was my focus. I want to make her happy. I want to make sure she's not disappointed. And you divide that by 12, you get like $2,000 a month. So that should be what I'm putting in. Actually, I'm surprised it's 17. Maybe it's 20,000 a year. I told her. Let's see. I mean, and we'll look at my other one too. So 1,700 times 12. I must have told her 20,000, not 24,000. So I essentially promised her that we'd have $20,000 a year plus Wildwood, 20,000 a year for just vacations. And remember, that doesn't include like weekend trips. That can come out of miscellaneous things like that. Uh, Health insurance. So that's a number at this point I was guessing. We're not going to get into it right now, but the what I ended up doing for this, and we'll talk a little more about this. Maybe even I'll do a separate section on it. Is the software will do Medicare, Medicare A, or what? No, Medicare B and C, whatever it is, the other stuff that goes along with Medicare, and it also gives you a place to put in uh, just expenses you have to pay, out of pocket expenses that aren't covered by Medicare. So I've got that. It's, even though it's like I said, this was kind of a primitive. You're going to see a little bit of evolution in my stuff, and then what I did for pre-Medicare, which is we'll probably take a session for that, is I went out to the New Jersey health. What is it? They call them whatever, where you go to look at all the different New Jersey health plans that are kind of under Obamacare, and you put in like how much you're going to make a year, and then you get from like it's either silver, platinum, or a gold plan, and it describes them all. So I think that's how I got this number before Medicare and all that 1,600. That number's still changed. I updated it probably in the software. House repairs, $100 a month. That number's kind of changed. I put in more now. So what I did is I kind of lumped together house repairs, emergency, and lumpy spending. Like lumpy spending is things like dishwashers, water heaters, stuff like that. So what I ended up doing is I have them in two categories now. The great thing about those categories, which you'll see in the software, is I put them so that they go until I hit long-term care plan, which we'll go over that. It's a lot of years. It's like 80, maybe late 70s. My wife and I have a debate about when we move, but whatever, it doesn't matter. I mean, it does, but not in this video. So what's great about the house and the appliance kind of stuff is I have two categories. And once I hit a certain number, I stop giving to that. So, or stop putting money in there. So what's great about that is that it kind of ended up being slack, right? Because like this will be my second year of retirement. And we'll get into how I fund all this stuff and you'll see it. Is once I hit 2 years with the money in there, it becomes extra money because in the plan it says I'm spending it. So what's so awesome about that is I can either put that towards a car, which I'm not planning on, but I can. I can put it towards vacations, and then what happens is if say we get a big house repair, what I'll do is I'll spend that money out of that bucket and then I'll replenish it the next year. The next year I'll say, hey, let's put some more in. So you'll see I bring these down to basically house repairs, emergency, and lumpy spending. I reduce them to two categories and they don't need to be taken care of all the time. Dog supplies, whatever, dog food, all that good stuff. Car repairs, ours and the kids. So basically with the kids, it's the same gig. When they get past 22 and change, then they start paying their own car repairs because they have their own car. So I put in like $100 a month. This is also a category in the new world too. But it's another one of those categories. It's another buffer category, right? Because once it hits a certain number, then I can stop putting in it. But in my plan, I never stop putting it. Okay, so we talked about spending. So that was Rev 1, whatever. This is version 1, and I totaled it, and then I matched it to some actuals. Every year in like October 1, I would dump all of our numbers from just two accounts, which is why I like to centralize. So basically I use one, well, there's two reasons. I have like 3 or 4 credit cards, but one credit card I put everything on, partly for simplicity. The other reason too is my kids, as they got older, they go on vacations and stuff. They needed a backup credit card, which turned into the primary credit card sometimes when they went on vacations. And it was just too much of a confusion to commingle them. So I just always knew, listen, if something comes in on the Discover or the Disney card, I know it wasn't something I did and I can start tracking it down with all the kids and use my wonderful Venmo. Couldn't live without Venmo. So that's all I did here is I took numbers that were retired and just kind of a sanity check, bounced it up against there. Now that's all I want to cover today. Um, but I want to show you that the reason I was building this is like this was like 5, 6 years ago, whatever, is because what I ended up building, which I don't encourage you to do so, but we'll cover it in a video, is I ended up using this information to feed a spreadsheet that I wrote. I must have spent, I don't know, 200 hours on this thing, a lot of time. I mean, over like a year. But I did this spreadsheet where you could put in birth dates. It takes care of inflation. It takes care of, you know, uh, yeah, rates when you're depositing, rates when you're withdrawing. It takes care of like what percentage, because you got the old spending smile where I don't believe in the spending smile, but for me, it's more of a spending straight line than maybe a little lower when we stop spending, and then comes back up. So I don't know what that would be called, but because for the most part, that's the thing. Like I think good retirement planning says you'll spend less if you've got kids and everything else. It just we bumped all that up like 4 or 5 years. So as soon as we became debt free, that kind of was our retirement scenario. So where you would say, listen, even though FICA I'm not paying into and stuff like that, my tax bracket should go way down. Thank goodness. I'm going to do the taxes in April, and I'll let you know how that works out because I'm expecting that to drop. I'm tired of paying, but the kids, insurance, paying for all the kids' food, emergencies, just all that goes away. But all that went away for me at probably like 53, 54. And so if I had retired at 54, you'd have seen a significant drop. But I'm not. We're retiring at I'm going to be, well, it's now. I'm retiring. I retired at 57. My wife's going to retire at 62. Again, because she's a teacher, has more time off. She likes her job. She didn't hate her job, and so our spending level will actually probably increase when we hit retirement because we're at our lowest expense right now until we turn like 78 when we just never want to leave the house. So that number that you just saw was the feed. This spreadsheet looks at that for its spending, and you'll see the age of stuff. So I wouldn't encourage people to do this. There's great software out there. Maybe we'll spend 5 minutes looking at this in a video. Maybe what I'll do is when I show you the software that I use now, Right Capital, and how I use it, which does everything for me. I'd suggest it to everybody, and I'll even give you a website where the people that run it for like $300, you can get the software too. But it was good because it made me think about a lot of things. It made me think about different scenarios, and I could just like change the number and it would change. I mean, the software does all stuff. It gave me my exposure years, in red and blue, red and green. If it's green, I did my top 10 years, and then red were my bottom 10 years. And this says zero, but it's probably just because the spreadsheet is messed up now, which is the primary reason why you should do a spreadsheet. But it was great because I didn't know about all this software at the time, and now I know about a couple other software programs I use. So thanks again for joining me. And remember, I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm just giving my financial story. And thank you.